Pinocchio in outer space. What can be said about this timely classic? It has everything you want in a space movie: whales, crabs, scorpions, a giant spider that looks like Spider Man, dogs, cats. It's got them all. And they go into outer space. Now, you may be wondering why exactly this movie is important. And for that, I have no answer. But let's look at it. It starts out with the blue fairy and her mother, the fairy queen, blue fairy queen, pink fairy, white fairy. I don't know what her mother's name is. We never find out. So, putting thread on a ball when a spaceship passes up. And of course, the blue fairy's mother, being an old crony, complains about this all the time. But then we go to Pinocchio, who we find out is a puppet again. And Geppetto is making him do his schoolwork. And Pinocchio says he doesn't care about space. Though Geppetto says he could one day do interplanetary travel. Now, this was made in 1963. We do not have interplanetary travel in 2025. So Elon Musk wants us to go to Mars. I think he's talking about doing weed, though. Actually, he does ketamine. So Pinocchio gets ready to go to school the next day, and Geppetto gives him a quarter for lunch. Now, Pinocchio is a puppet. How does a puppet eat? Did Geppetto intricately carve a gastric system in Pinocchio and an asshole and maybe a dick on Pinocchio when he was creating him and then just like shut him up? I'm not sure how he eats or drinks because that would be a lot of work. But I could totally see Geppetto doing it. So Pinocchio goes off to school and sings the second annoying song in this movie. The first one is sang when we go to Geppetto's toy shop at the beginning. And we meet the Cat Brothers, who sell Pinocchio a hypnosis booklet for 25 cents. And they sing the third annoying song in this movie. There are no more annoying songs. They just wanted to irritate the hell out of you before getting into anything. And then a spaceship almost lands on Pinocchio, which is weird because it lands on its bottom, and throughout the entire movie, it lands like this. The rest of the movie, it lands like this. When it almost lands on Pinocchio, it lands like this. This movie has a lot of inconsistencies, people. I'm going to point them all out to you. So we meet Nurdle, the Twirtle, who's a secret agent, and he is going to Mars, but he's on Earth, which he thinks is Mars, because he's also been doing ketamine. But Pinocchio warns him of the giant whale in space that's been destroying satellites, but Pinocchio says he can hypnotize it. Now, I've never tried to hypnotize a whale. I have tried to hypnotize people, and it hasn't worked. I did once see a really fat lady hypnotized once, so maybe that counts as hypnotizing a whale. So Pinocchio goes with Nurdle, and they head to Mars. And after landing on Mars, we see that Pinocchio can't jump, skip, or hop. But then, after the joke's over, Pinocchio can jump, skip, and hop. So apparently Pinocchio was just being funny. And then their ship gets taken by a giant crab. And then two more giant crabs show up, and their ship gets thrown halfway across Mars. But their ship is okay. Remember that. It's gonna be necessary homework later on. So then they go over to the Mars city they found, and they realize it's been killed by a giant space whale. But they find some fighter ships and where the radioactivity is coming from, and they go to check it out, where they find atomic reactors. You can tell it was made in the 50s and 60s because they're referring to it as atomic. And they also find little creatures that are being fed radioactive material to grow bigger, and giant monsters. Giant monsters aren't really important. They're just giant monsters here and there chasing them around. Giant monsters aren't really that important anymore. Need something new. Build giant Frankenstein. A robotic giant Frankenstein taking on a giant Frankenstein, taking on a miniature mummy. That's a movie. Okay, back to the movie. So then the sandstorm rolls in and starts burying everything in sand. Now, they could barely get their ship out when it was thrown around. They get outside and their ship is halfway buried in sand. But they can fly it out with ease. And then the atomic reactors blow up and there's a big atomic cloud. And then they head into space where they see the space whale. And Pinocchio tries to hypnotize, and they get eaten by him. And Pinocchio and Nerdle have no idea how to get out of a space whale. Because apparently Nerdle's ship doesn't have any weapons on it. And Nerdle doesn't carry any weapons on him. And Pinocchio is a puppet. I guess puppets don't have weapons. So the blue fairy comes, and Pinocchio and Nerdle figure out to go out the spout. But the ship hits the wall in the spout, but then they make it out, and the ship is damaged. Now, mind you, no less than 20 minutes ago, we saw the ship fly halfway across Mars and bounce no less than 4 times. It was completely okay. But it hit a wall, and now it's damaged. So they get up, so the space whale is chasing them, and Pinocchio is trying to hypnotize it, which he'd have better luck just showing it his ass and seeing if maybe he'll follow him. Okay, but the ship is rotating in a circle and it's shiny, and that hypnotizes the whale. And so they tie themselves to the whale, and they're discovered on a telescope, and all the papers in the world have their pictures on it next to the whale. Now, Nerdle was only on Earth for like 3 minutes, and Pinocchio lives in a very small town. So how every paper got their picture, we don't know. Now, the problem is they're coming in too hot. So Nerdle cuts the rope. Pinocchio goes, we have to save the space whale. We can't let it crash on Earth or burn up in the atmosphere. So Pinocchio goes and puts a hook on the whale's spout and reverses the spout, killing himself in the process. Now, here's my question. And this is just a question. I don't expect you to have the answer. I don't expect anyone to have the answer. But the whale was hypnotized. Why didn't Pinocchio just climb out onto the ship and hold on and tell the whale to go in reverse? I'll let you think about that for a minute. Okay, but the whale is The whale is captured. Pinocchio is in his bed, dead, or in a coma. I'm not sure which one. Nurdle is in there, and a blue fairy comes in and makes Pinocchio a boy, so he's alive again. And then they go to the celebration of the captured space whale, and Nurdle flies off, and it's the end of the movie. And the dog winks at us. But how does Pinocchio eat? And if he does eat, does he need to use the bathroom? I'll let you think about that for a minute. This is an atomic age space race movie. That's all it basically is. A late atomic age, early space race movie. Is it entertaining? Yes. Does it have inconsistencies? Yes. Is it weird? Yes. But it's nothing more than that. It's on YouTube if you want to check it out. Join me next week where we will talk about Ozzy and wrestling on Monday, hopefully. And then on Wednesday, we will review the movie Grizzly 2.